Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about why Hasbro should just give up the Star Wars franchise. They should stop making this, pass it on to a company that actually wants to do it. Get this burden off of their back, because they obviously do not want to make Star Wars product. They don't seem to care about the franchise. They're just frankly tired of it after 27 years. Now, I've been collecting for 26 years of this Hasbro, and I've been watching every step of the way. There was a time when Hasbro did excellent work. I think it was around 2011, 2012. That time frame was probably the pinnacle, the best that they've ever done with the Star Wars franchise. Then I was actually terrified in the 90s when the rumor was popping up that Mattel was going to take over and Hasbro was going to lose it. This was way before any of the great stuff they made ever came out. But I'm going to tell you why that was a thing. Today, Mattel will probably do a better job. This isn't going to be just a bash Hasbro. It's just going to be a very logical look at what Hasbro's been doing with Star Wars for the past 2 to 5 years, or actually almost 7, and see why they're just tired of it. They're done with it, and they need to just pass it on. We're going to talk about this and more coming up. So the first thing I want to say is that Hasbro, it fails to invest in the brand, and here's what I'm saying with this. Be a very poor showing. They were going to do mostly just repaints, and a couple of new figures are not going to wow anybody, and very few people are even going to care, and it shows in the lack of pre-order selling out. Aside from the Cantina band members, which I'm sure there's a lot of reused parts in those figures, but this droid is the only one they said was from ground up, and I bet you the blaster is not from ground up, but the figure is. All new mold, all new. I don't even remember this guy. I watched the Mando series. I don't remember this guy. They waste the budget on brand new figure that I don't think that many people are really that interested in. Had a very small amount of time in the film, but yet they didn't go back and give us what we want. We're going to talk more about that. But this is what they invest. This is the small, minor investment. This whole thing that they could have done so much more, and this is the new figure we get. I don't know how much of this Anakin is just reissued parts and stuff, but I'm pretty sure the whole thing is. And that's the thing. The last Anakin was a reissue also, and it sat on the shelf. Between Black Series and Vintage Collection, they're just rehashing and putting out the same thing over and over and over. They fail to invest in the future. I'm saying, okay, maybe we get a new figure here and there. Maybe technically we get 6 new figures a year. That is not a very big investment in a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Heck, even the vehicles are just rehashed, which we haven't seen the AT-AT reissued in nearly a decade also. So there are some of those issues there, but where are the vehicles? Where are these vehicles? They even have the molds. At this point, they don't even need to make new vehicles. They can just put out old ones, but they choose not to. Or they made the mistake of making a much worse version and putting it out instead of the best, most pinnacle versions that they have. So my next point is, at this phase, this is the best Hasbro can do. This is the best that Hasbro has to offer collectors like myself that have been in the game for 26 years, and I'm still trying to get the original 96 either in Black Series 6-inch scale or in the Vintage Collection 3 3/4 inch scale. I still can't get that, and we're going to talk more about that, but this is the best that they can do. This is their absolute best effort, all that they could do, scraping everything together for this May 4th, and this is all we get. I just gotta say that Hasbro's got to do better. They don't want to do better. They don't care to do better, and I don't even think they care if these sell or not. It just gets to a point where they're going through the motions. It's one of those things that they have no passion behind it. They're not hungry for it. A new company would be. They take everything for granted, every collector for granted. They assume that if it says Star Wars, somebody's going to buy it, and they really just don't care what they're putting out. Now, I do understand that they have budget constraints and limits and all of this kind of stuff, but again, $4 billion property here, that what are you going to give them budget constraints of a new startup toy line? Hasbro has the resources to put out an all-new toy line tomorrow if they want to. If Hasbro acquired a new property, say they got the license to Voltron, they could put out a massive, massive Voltron series of toys if they chose to, if they wanted to. They could put the full force of Hasbro behind it, make it very successful, by the way, and make a lot of money doing it, but for whatever reason, they choose not to do it with Star Wars. So next point is, there's absolutely no clear direction. collectors collecting Star Wars are just kind of getting hit with whatever surprise left field ideas that they came up with. Whatever they could figure, they could put parts from previous existing figures and just make a new figure or a new version of the same exact figure over and over and over, but there's no clear direction. There's no end result. There is no momentum. There's no getting anywhere with collecting. It's just piling useless releases upon useless release, stuffing another useless release into a box for storage because it is meaningless. It has no meaning to the collectors because what they're putting out is no continuity to it. There's no end game. There's no goal. We're not getting anywhere. We're not achieving anything. What are we doing? We're just getting useless stuff, and I've stopped buying everything. Actually, it has been a long time since I've pre-ordered a Star Wars item because very few of these actually strike me as something that we need. And yes, I do like this Leia and Ewok village, but where's the rest of the Ewoks? Heck, where's Wicket? Wicket's just in that exclusive 4-pack that they made a couple thousand of. See, in the past, there was sort of a clear direction. And a movie came out, then you could go buy this playset and buy figures to go with the playset, and everything worked cohesive. The collect them all actually made sense. Now collect them all means collect 5,000. I'm not joking. 5,000 is where we're at with Star Wars if you want to collect them all. That's at least where we're at. Maybe it's 6,000 by now. So the collect them all is thrown out the window completely, entirely. But with that, this Geonosis set, I wasn't really into the prequels. I never bought this playset, but everybody that's owned it says it's an amazing playset. I don't know if they reused it for something else down the road, but it does look pretty awesome. And by today's standards, I'm in awe of this thing, that Hasbro actually made this. Here's what Hasbro gives us today. I'd say that playsets were left in the 80s, but that Geonosis playset was, what, 2005 or something like that? So it was left in the early 2000s, the early aughts. But this is all we're really getting from Hasbro these days. And these are all $50 options. And aside from the exclusive Walmart ones, I think you can still get all of these for $50 at the retailers. Not even on eBay or anything like that. Not on the secondary market, just the primary market. You can get them at retailers. I know that the Stairway to Nowhere is still on BBTS right now. It says in stock. But with that, these are very uninspired and very cheap playsets. Not even playsets, they're background dioramas, which I'm okay with the background diorama at the right price. So with that, I'm okay even with what we got with Jabba's Palace, because you got 2 figures packed in. That's $30 worth of figures for a $50 playset. That's $20 for the playset. That was an excellent value. I don't see the value in these other two, and then you do have to double, triple, or quadruple up on these other ones to make a full sort of semi-scene of a playset. That goes back to failure to invest, so let's look at what would I like them to invest in. Well, aside from new vehicles, or even just rehashing old vehicles with the vintage style packaging, or something along those lines. I'd like to see a vehicle on a shelf again in my lifetime, and not that toddler, whatever they call that. It is called Mission Fleet, or the 2.5-inch toddler figures that they make. So anyway, I want to see the 96 get finished in the Black Series and in the Vintage Collection. And so I made a little list here. These are the Black Series ones, but most of them have not been made in the Vintage Collection. So EV-99, instead of that other silly droid, we should have got the EV-99, the FX-7, Hammerhead, Gonk Droid. And Gonk Droid was done in the Vintage Collection. Death Star Droid was done in the Vintage Collection. Lobot done in the Vintage Collection. But 2-1B, why do we not get a 2-1B? How do we get this other weird droid that I don't even remember before we get a 2-1B? Snaggletooth, then we got that in the Vintage Collection, but we did not get that in Black Series. Bespin Guards in the Black Series, we need that. 8D8 in both lines. Prune Face, I believe we need that in both lines. Skiff Guards, we did get some Skiff Guards, which is it's a praise that I'm going to give them here a little bit. Squid Head, a Man-O-Man, pilots for the B-Wing and the A-Wing, Death Star Gunner, Anakin, the old one, the real one, the Alec Guinness, and the Imperial Dignitaries, multiples, Ewoks, Where is Wicket, and of course, the Rancor Keeper. Why don't we get that in the Black Series? And why don't we get the rest of this fleshed out in Vintage Collection? So to recap where we're at now, invest in your brand, do the best you can, which is way better than what you're doing right now, and give some clear direction in your toy line. So the next thing I want to say is reissues. Now, I want to admit that reissues are actually helpful in some ways and shapes and forms. When you collect this stuff and you just get inundated with reissue after reissue after reissue, this is an example of a very necessary reissue, a good one that they should be doing, but then you get inundated with a bunch of other ones that nobody on the planet even cares about or wants, and so those clog up pegs. So it makes it harder to get this because the other ones are sitting there clogging up pegs. You get one case, you get one of this figure, and then the other ones sit there forever. Kind of like what they're doing with the Black Series. Now, what they're doing in these multiple different lines, and splitting the lines, that was a bad idea in the first place, but still, what they're doing here is bad. We're going to see these Leias forever. This is the 4th iteration of this Leia that I know of, and it's the exact same figure. Exactly the same. Has a slight bit of better paint. Not vastly better, just a little bit better. At least she has company with Lando next to her, but the Toy Guru says they do this on purpose. They want figures on the shelf that are never going to sell, eventually go to $7 on clearance. I disagree with that. I do disagree with that. I feel like they should want to get as many figures out, make as much money, sell as much as they can, not engineer peg warmers on purpose. Or not show how completely, totally out of touch they are with their consumer base. So I made a video asking, is Motu going to end in 2022, like kind of everybody was talking about, and I pointed out what I was seeing, but what I see now from Mattel is that they are going strong. They're announcing quite a few figures. There's a lot going on with that brand, and they are still hungry for their own brand. Now, of course, that is their own brand. It's not like G.I. Joe and Hasbro, where Hasbro seems to sort of care about G.I. Joe, but I think Mattel cares more about their franchise. Who knows, though, is it still going to go on past 2022? Now, they don't technically own the license. They sub out the license and all that kind of stuff. But still, I think Mattel would do a better job than Hasbro because they would be hungry for it. It would be a new team of people that are excited to bring great products to market. Now, my big concern about Mattel taking over Hasbro, where Hasbro was with Star Wars back in the 90s, is the fact that I thought they would have to do a whole new scale and we'd have to get all new figures. And yes, you would get all the figures all over again, over and over and over. You'd have to go through that process if Mattel got the license, or any other company got the license. You would just basically have to go through that whole process. Would the scale still be a little bit bigger? Would the Star Wars figures be 7-inch if McFarlane got it? But McFarlane got the DC license, and I do want to say that it's not unheard of for like Hasbro to get rid of Star Wars, simply because we've seen this before where Mattel got rid of DC. Now, I remember Mattel had DC figures, and they would be on the shelves for the year, and then they would go to $5 clearance. And it was like you could count on $5 clearance figures from Mattel because they were just kind of sick and tired and done with it. It's not a Hasbro only thing, and I'm not saying Mattel's any better than Hasbro. I'm just saying we need somebody that's hungry for the franchise and will do a better job. So the next thing that I did not realize the massive significance of the Rancor. I just thought simple mathematics. I was a bean counter. I was thinking more of an accountant, but I'm actually a marketer, so I should have been thinking from a marketing standpoint. But with this, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever that they, first off, overpriced this by $100. At most, it should have been $250. So you were going to buy the HasLab for the Rancor. The throw-ins are extra add-ons so that it could be a much more profitable project for them. They're going to pass a little bit of that profit to us through these add-ons. Now, these add-ons were a failure. Nobody really cared about them, and they are actually going to make Tier 4, that Jedi Luke. That was announced in a recent pipeline reveal, but this is very uninspired, shows the lack of investment, and the fact that it got so close within 470 or something, 470, and they just cut it off and they canceled it. They don't care. They wiped their hands of it. They don't even want to mess with it. I don't know if it'll ever come back. There'll be a round 2. But there were so many problems surrounding this. It was such a bad rollout of this, and they just didn't care. It was like, not my problem. Everybody has one. Not my problem. Oh, well, they don't want it. Fans don't care. Fans don't want it. Whatever. But that's what they're talking about. Internally, I'm guessing. Externally, they say, we want to thank all the fans that supported this, but there's not enough people that want it, so too bad. That sounds to me like a company that doesn't care about their franchise, isn't even concerned about making this project work. The Transformer team, they extended Unicron, and I'm so glad they did. and they brought that project to reality, and it's an amazing item. Even though it's not perfect, I'm happy to have it. So lastly, I want to dig a little bit deeper into this decision to have an all-new mold for this droid that I don't care about. I'll probably pick it up because I like droids, but why not EV-99? It was in both modern property and the original trilogy. It is known by almost every collector that's out there and every fan. And now, if it wasn't known, it's known now because it was in the Mando or Book of Boba Fett. One of those, it was in there. And so with all of this, I guess I should call her she, EV-99. But with all of this, I would much rather have an EV-99 than what they're making. Even though maybe that droid does look a little bit cooler than EV-99. EV-99 is a little boring from an old design. But that old design and that boring is Star Wars. That link to collecting the stuff that we love. We collect the stuff we love, not the stuff that's just forced on us. I've had a lot of people tell me in my comments that Disney is a big part of the problem and the reason they can't make new figures. They have to make what Disney tells them to make. I don't believe that, because if that was true, why would they be reissuing this? Are they told they can just reissue anything they want, but if it's something new, they got to get Disney's approval? I don't really think that's it. I think that if they want to make anything from the Star Wars franchise, they have the ability to do it. They paid for it. They could do that. They just choose not to because they don't want to, because satisfying collectors isn't even on their radar. This botched relaunch of the Vintage Collection was the worst out-of-touch relaunch I've ever seen. These were the worst figures you could pick for a relaunch, aside from one, of course, but that one suffered the whole entire failed wave syndrome, and these still haunt my dreams tonight. We've got this $250 Jabba's Palace, and the only reason that it was even considered is because it's in new media. They're not going back and revisiting old stuff and making big, elaborate playsets. But this isn't big or elaborate, it's just a big price tag on about a $70 playset. What really bothers me is Hasbro shows some absolute wonderful ideas and gems, and then 2 more years later, they stop those good ideas. This skiff was a great idea, a great vehicle. Maybe it wasn't a retail stellar hit, but it is awesome that they made it. Also, 2019 was one of the better years for Star Wars collecting in the last decade, because they gave us so much stuff from Return of the Jedi, and it's like they don't even know the original trilogy exists anymore. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it's that Hasbro knows collecting better than I do, and I don't understand Star Wars collecting anymore, and I should just stop Star Wars collecting. And really, I think that's where 90% of the fans that I know are going, the direction they're going. The fans that buy 3 of every figure that come out are just, we need to quit, and the people that buy 1 of every 5 items that come out are the ones they want to cater to. So, yeah, we should all quit, speak with our money, and you notice I haven't even talked about the removal of the plastic packaging. I haven't even talked about the massive price increase, and yes, $25 means you get 4 for $100 instead of 5 for $100, and for figures you don't even care about. So there's so many more factors that could go into this, but at the end of the day, I think Hasbro's done. Stick a fork in them, they're done. Why are they still a Walking Dead zombie of a toy line with Star Wars when another company would do so much better? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Should Hasbro keep it? Should they give it up? I mean, obviously they're not going to. They're just going to be a walking zombie for the next 50 years, I guess. But let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, Hanger out.